Joining us now for tonight's big close-up is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, who sits on the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator Johnson, thank you for joining us tonight. Listen, I know there's all kinds of nuance to this fight right now that's happening on Capitol Hill. It looks like Democrats are split between the Senate and the House as far as who gets to say what's in the deal. Just looking at your votes, you voted against the 6-bill package. You also voted against the 5-bill deal that pulled DHS out of it. Now, I know you had your reasons for both of those. I'd love you to explain to us what you're looking for as far as a funding bill from the House that would get your vote and your colleagues' vote.
Well, if they could strip the $14 billion of earmarks that we can't afford, that would be a start. But, let's face it, this is not particularly nuanced. The reason we have ICE trying to clean up the mess created by Democrats is because Democrats opened the border, allowed millions of people to flood into this country. Among those millions are criminals, members of transnational criminal organizations, violent gangs, human drug and sex traffickers. I wish the Democrats would be as upset about the deaths of Laken Riley and Rachel Morin and the many, 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 many others who've been victimized by crimes committed by illegal immigrants. This is, the resistance to ICE is pretty limited to blue states, to sanctuary cities, sanctuary states throughout America, where local officials are actually cooperating with ICE to get the criminals off the street. You're not having any problems. You're not having issues. So this is ginned up. These are activists that are trained, that are encouraged to put themselves in harm's way. And because they put themselves in harm's way, we had 2 tragic deaths in Minneapolis.
Joey mentioned the nuance, and I'm sure
there's not much nuance there.
But my question is on the timing of all this, because there are nuanced discussions happening within your caucus, within the Democrats. There's all this stuff is going on behind the scenes. Are you, in light of all that, as optimistic as House Speaker Johnson that this thing gets resolved by Tuesday? Because just reading the tea leaves from afar, it does not look like Tuesday is really realistic.
Well, first of all, the vast majority of government stays open. It doesn't close down. It's on automatic pilot. That's part of our problem. But when you've got the minority leader of the House saying that Democrats aren't going to help Republicans, again, there's a lot of objectionable things in these funding bills. Now, when you're spending trillions of dollars, or about $1.3 trillion, obviously it's going to fund a lot of good things. But we're approaching $39 trillion in debt. The fact that you had 5 senators with earmarks totaling over $400 million apiece. Mm-hmm. The top earmarker in the Senate is, by the way, the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, getting, I think, $520 million of earmarks. That'll obviously grease the skids. Yeah. So that's a problem. The reason you get bipartisanship here is we spend money we don't have.
Yes, Senator Johnson, thank you for joining. I want to ask you about voter ID. Poll after poll, it shows at least 80% of Americans support the idea of having proper identification to vote in an election. Why can't this get done?
Because Democrats want to make it easy to cheat. They're not interested in election security. That ought to tell you something. Republicans are happy to make it easy to vote, but we want to make it almost impossible to cheat. The reason 80% of Americans support voter ID is they don't want their legitimate vote canceled out by a fraudulent vote. Democrats have no problem with that, which is why they're rushing to do things like automatic registration. They doubled the number of absentee ballots, even though the Baker-Carter Commission said that was probably the greatest area of potential fraud in our elections. They embrace that. So, again, Democrats refuse to cooperate with Republicans to make our elections more secure.
Senator, yesterday marked the 1-year anniversary since the end of the devastating Palisades fires. And this week, local fire officials told you and the rest of the Senate Homeland Security Committee that this tragedy was really avoidable. Listen.
The Palisades fire was preventable. It was a predictable outcome of a breakdown in leadership, preparedness, and command discipline.
What failed was not the tactics, strategy, courage, or professionalism of firefighters and first responders. What failed was not the willingness of agencies to act. What failed was the leadership and the system's ability to convert known risk into decisive, coordinated action early enough to change outcomes.
President Trump has now signed an executive order to help rebuilding efforts. And, Senator, you got a firsthand look at the devastation last November. What do you think needs to be done there to help the residents rebuild more quickly?
stop electing Democrats in California. I mean, this is complete incompetence, mismanagement, poor governance. This never should have happened. The reservoirs were empty. They remained empty. There wasn't leadership inside California within Los Angeles to pre-position fire departments. They pulled a fire crew off a fire that was smoldering on January 1st, even though they predicted the high winds. So this was completely avoidable. The deaths, all the property destruction never should have occurred. But again, the problem is Democrat governance. Prior to 1800, California burned about, on average, 4.5 million acres. By the year 2000, they were down to 250,000 acres because of proper management. And then they stopped doing that in 2023 alone. They burned 4.3 million acres again. So again, it's gross mismanagement. They don't do forest management. They don't let animals graze. They don't have their reservoirs filled. Completely unavoidable. This is a huge tragedy because of Democrat mismanagement, poor governance by Democrats.
Senator, lastly, just to follow up, I agree with what you're saying. All this pork, earmark, pork, what you want to call it. Is the honest way to pass funding to get each of these bills through on their own merit individually? I understand the expediency of package bills, but isn't that how we get pork? Isn't that how we get things that most people don't want?
Well, what we should do is pass my Eliminate Shutdowns Act, or at a minimum pass the Shutdowns Fairness Act, so the government's going to continue to function even if we're dysfunctional. I've been there for 15 years. We should have passed 180 appropriation bills prior to the fiscal year they were going to fund. We've passed 6. It's a 96.7% failure rate, but the uniparty appropriators like the shutdown leverage they have, basically using government employees and the public as pawns in the dysfunctional game. That has to end. Eliminate Shutdown Act would end this. Shutdown Fairness Act would at least pay people that, they're going to get paid anyway, but you pay them on time.
Senator Ron Johnson, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We truly appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.